I'm back again. So, so the rapture hasn't occurred yet. You probably heard that because of Rosh Hashanah, we were supposed to have a rapture, and but the Jewish New Year has come and gone, and or at least it's in it. I'm not saying it's gone, but we're in it. And unfortunately, the church, is still here. So I do want to circle back and talk about the rapture and its imminency, if you will. So today we have news. We have Ukraine in the news, if you will, and basically Russia says that it's prepared to use nukes in order to consolidate its position in Ukraine. Well, that's pretty interesting and very dangerous, Unfortunately, Ukraine is not a top news item, unfortunately, in the West, like it should be. I mean, for people like me who keep an eye on it, it's number one issue. But for most people, they want to talk about Trump or DeSantis or, Biden or, Pelosi and, elections and so forth and so on and, natural disasters. Ukraine seems to be on the back burner for everybody, and I'm not sure why. It's the first conventional war in Europe since World War II. And so it's very serious. But now we have the Russians declaring that they're going to mobilize, right? They're going to, for Russia under Putin, it was supposed to be this small operation, very much modeled after the Western way of war, which is, bring in small, highly professional forces, and within weeks, you reach your objective, and the regime falls. Well, Russia can't do what the West can do, apparently. And their special operation now is turning more and more into a bigger war. And in order to carry out the Russian way of war, not the Western way, Russia requires more troops. And so now they are calling up reserves, right? So it says here, this is dated September 20th, and it says Vladimir Putin appeared poised to go all in on his war in Ukraine today, sparking fears of an escalation fighting that could drag NATO and spark World War III. Yeah, very much so. In a day of rapid-fire developments, Kremlin stooges in Ukraine's Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson regions simultaneously announced referendums on becoming part of Russia between September 23rd and 27th, with, of course, the sham votes expected to pass. Basically, Russia is annexing the territories they just took. Before, they were claiming that they were taking it to liberate, Russian peoples in those Ukrainian territories. Well, now they're just going to take it and just make it Russia. How about that? So the West has warned Russia not to do this, and that their annexations will not be allowed or supported or recognized. And so the threat of nuclear war is very real in Ukraine. And but I don't really think Russia is going to drop a nuclear bomb on Ukraine. I really don't think so. There's already, we could arm the Ukrainians with nuclear weapons if we wanted to. If Iran, who's an ally of Russia, is going to have nukes, well, maybe Ukraine, who's an ally of the United States and of the West, maybe they should have nukes. Maybe that'll keep the Russians out of Ukraine. Otherwise, it's going to be a long war. This is a war that we have not seen since, 75 years. It's vicious and it's bloody, and it involves tanks and artillery and aircraft. This is not a unconventional war. This is not jungle warfare like Vietnam. This is not, you know, a little nation destroying a third world nation, you know, like Iraq. You know, America versus Iraq. Iraq had no chance. And rightly so. They should never have thought that they could take on the United States, but they did and lost. Well, Russia and Ukraine, they're more on equal grounds. It's more of a 2-to-1 situation. You know, Russians have a 2-to-1 advantage. But if you have a defense like Ukraine does and your back is against the wall, well, that's kind of a force multiplier in terms of morale for the people. And not to mention, you have support from the West, not only materially, but morally, as well as spiritual support. And that goes a long way in defending one's country. And that's not something that Russia has. You know, Russia is alone against Ukraine. Does not have the support of the West. And Russia historically has always needed support in fighting in the West. You know, Napoleon invaded Russia, but thankfully Britain was on the side of Russia, as well as the German states, and together they fought against Napoleon, defeated him. Adolf Hitler invaded Russia, and again, Britain, and this time America, joined Russia against Germany and Hitler. But, this time, not the case. There is no support from the West, so Russia is in a world of hurt, and the best thing for Russia to do is just get out of Ukraine and ask for peace. But they will not do that. They are raising more troops. They're going to bring in more troops. Some have suggested that even though it may be 100,000 to 1 million men, excuse me, that those men will only be enough to, rotate the burnt-out troops who've been in the fight since February, and give them a break. And so it's like a troop rotation, more or less. And so it really won't be that much, but we'll see, right? We'll see. We'll see what happens there. Another interesting thing I wanted to touch on is in California. It's interesting, in the Bible we have, well, how do I say this? Well, if you go to the book of Revelation, there is a coming Holocaust that will be global in nature. Well, the question is, if you have a global Holocaust, where do you put all the bodies? Well, apparently, the New World Order and climate change activists have a solution. Not that they're, at least not publicly stating, they want a global Holocaust. But isn't it interesting that it says here that decomposing human remains can legally be used as compost from 2027 thanks to a new California law aimed at tackling climate change? Well, isn't that interesting? It says California will begin offering the option of human composting after death thanks to a bill recently signed into law that aims to tackle climate change. Human composting, also known as natural organic reduction, NOR, would be an option for residents who don't want to be buried or cremated upon their death, starting in 2027. The process involves placing the body inside a long, reusable steel container along with wood chips and flowers to aerate it, allowing microbes and bacteria to do or to break down the remains. This is a Daily Mail article, by the way. Let's see. Advocates for the bill, which was signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom on Sunday, has said that the NOR is a more climate-friendly option. Really? I find it just sacrilege, to be honest. I find this unsettling, don't you? Let's see. It says cremation in the U.S. alone emits about 360,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. The bill bans the combining of various people's remains unless they are related. But it doesn't make it illegal to sell the soil that results from the process or use it to grow food for human consumption. So basically, you're going to put human remains into the fields, and that's okay. You can't put them in, you don't necessarily have to put them in cemeteries. You can put them in anywhere you want. And if it's a farmer's field, that's okay. And we'll go ahead and plant crops there. I'm sure the leftovers will do wonders for the crops. So, interestingly though, the Catholic Church is against this. Good for them. They said that essentially this is the same process as home gardening composting system, said Kathleen Domingo of the California Catholic Conference. She added that the process was developed for livestock, not humans. Says here, Washington, Colorado, and Oregon have all legalized the process of composting human remains. However, Colorado does not allow the soil to be sold or used to grow food for human consumption. Okay, California absent from that provision. Yeah.